I'm gonna be honest. I didn't have this on the note. To your point, and I told y'all guys we was gonna add topics to this, but with JB Bickerstaff, I'm glad you brought that up because
Yep.
Me, Uncle Tate, Big G,
Yep.
now we've talked about in some fashion about JB Bickerstaff, right? Before the season started, we said what would this season mean to JB Bickerstaff, right? I'm on the record saying on that podcast, my channel with you, that I feel like JB Bickerstaff tenure in Cleveland is numbered, essentially because JB Bickerstaff hasn't proven thus far that he can manage rosters, right?
Yes.
Outside of defensive schemes. Now, he is a great defensive coach.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. He is a great development coach. But unfortunately for him, the Cleveland Cavaliers kind of broke that ceiling a little faster than probably a lot of Cavs fans and people in the front office of the Cleveland Cavaliers thought, right?
Yeah.
And now with us having Donovan Mitchell, we need a coach that's going to take us to the next level. And I don't think JB Bickerstaff as a coach is going to get us there. That means I think this season might be his last season. To be honest, I would have probably said maybe before the trade deadline, but honestly, I don't think they're gonna do it that early.
Oh, no way! No,
I think they're gonna let it ride through. They're gonna see what he do. If he get knocked out in the first round, this playoff, he's out of here. Like I'm willing to bet.
Wow.
Really? I'm willing to bet. Yeah, if he gets knocked out in the first round, I don't see how they could. I don't see how Kobe Altman could go to the press conference box and explain to us why he is the coach for the Cavs for that next following season. Because right now, the pressure's on, right? You have rumors of Donovan Mitchell wanting to potentially go to those New York teams, right? You have a team that arguably is a top-tier team in the Eastern Conference. You have a team that was, fourth or third seed last season, right? So we are dropping. Yes, it is still early, so it's a lot of room for error. But you have other teams such as the Indiana Pacers, the Knicks, and the Sixers that's only getting better this season. And I feel like with Indiana, actually, and to use them, I feel like Indiana, for what they don't have, they look a little bit more promising, right?
Yeah.
Than the Cavs right now, even though, surprise, surprise, I did say Indiana was going to be the one that's going to be the dark horse of the season.
That's clever. That's clever. They did.
You know what I mean? I kind of just to throw that in there. But
I said that about Minnesota, remember? But I was 1 year too early.
You was. I give you that.
I was 1 year too early.
But I think the Cavs is gonna eventually have to look for their playoff contender coach. Yeah. Right? Like, I feel like every team has it. Like, I think JB Bickerstaff did what he was supposed to do. Honestly. Like, if he does get fired, this is not a loss or a blemish on his career. Like, he did.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Like, because honestly, he did what he was supposed to do. And to be honest, he did more because he developed these guys essentially the season of him getting the job into basically the playoffs. Then the only reason we smoked it was because of the play-in. We just had two back-to-back duds with Atlanta, and we just played a juggernaut Brooklyn Nets team.
Brooklyn, yeah.
But I think right now, JB Bickerstaff, he did it. He did what he was supposed to do, and then some. So now we do have to look for that, I don't know, Mark Jackson, that Steve Kerr type coach, that, that Quinn Snyder, even though I know he is on Atlanta, but like those tier coaches to really get us to the next level.
Yeah. I have a feeling. I don't think he will. I have a feeling he's not going to get fired, especially judging by that report we saw by is it Chris Fedor from Cleveland.com? I think reported it. He said JB Bickerstaff is 100% safe for the year. He'll be. I mean, it would flat out be a mistake to fire JB Bickerstaff any time this year because that it never works. Like, it's just unless you're you're one of the worst teams in the league. What happened with us and Ty Lue? that was probably for the best. But with everything that's going on right now in the NBA and how the Cavaliers, JB Bickerstaff's probably sitting there arguing. He's saying, all right, well, last season when I had a good 9-man rotation, what did I do? I took an extremely young team to the first round.
Absolutely.
What happened this year? You gave me a overweight George Niang. You gave me no 9 to 15th man rotations. How am I supposed to even try and figure out an offense when I've got this bag of milk running around the court who can't even sprint? I don't know if you've seen George Niang try and sprint this year. He can't do it, right? He's probably arguing all of that. Not just that, the other thing that Kobe Altman would be scared about is, does firing your coach now, has it really worked for many teams other than the Philadelphia 76ers? You look at Toronto. Have they done anything since firing Nick Nurse? Like, they got a lot worse. The Atlanta Hawks, I know Nate McMillan probably wasn't the best coach, but Quinn Snyder is about 8 losses more than what they were this time last year, I believe. You look at a ton of teams like that, it takes a couple years sometimes for these coaches to get back into it. And when you've got a guy like JB Bickerstaff, who all the players love, right? He's one of the best defensive coaches in the game. Can you afford to lose him, or can you do what, a team like Richmond did in the AFL in Australia? What they did was, right, they realized their coach was extremely good at one or two things and wasn't good at some other things. So what they did was they added a ton of assistant coaches around him who made up for those other things that he lacked. Could the Cavaliers say, well, we've got JB Bickerstaff here, arguably one of the best defensive coaches in the game. Could they somewhat act and be like, maybe JB's our defensive coordinator, right? Maybe we need an offensive coordinator. Maybe we need a top assistant coach who's got some really good offensive plan. Maybe they go out and just say, well, maybe it's the assistant coaches as well. What if we get rid of the assistant coaches before the head coach? I feel like that's the thing that Kobe might do with the Cavaliers, because, again, the players love JB Bickerstaff. He's got a crappy rotation right now, and he's just one of the best defensive coaches in the league. What happens if we actually get this guy a really good offensive coach?
I think that's where it's weird, though, because to your earlier point about saying, maybe Kobe Altman just like, I won't say clean house, but just like you start adding some new assistant coaches. The only problem that happens with that is usually coaches like hiring their staff,
their own guys. Staff,
right? So the problem, which is, I think that's one of the hugest reasons why GMs just end up just firing coaches, because they just like, it's kind of easier. Just like, if you really want to establish that, you just fire them and then essentially start over. You know what I mean? And just try to get that direction. Now, let's bring up the point. Maybe let's say JB Bickerstaff is open to general manager suggestions. Like, hey, all right, let's add this assistant coach, this coordinator, and this guy from the staff. If that happens, that could be something we could do before maybe firing him. The only caveat I have to this is we actually have seen often in the past 5 years, actually, in the NBA, where even coaches that has won Coach of the Year
got
fired the same year they won the award. Dwayne
Casey.
And so we've had a track history where that really doesn't matter a lot of times. And even though Nick Nurse didn't win it the same year, but he won it, still got fired within, Mike Budenholzer. Shoot, he won a championship.
And that's another case to my point, though. What a mistake. Why did the Bucks fire their championship coach from 2 years ago? Why did the Raptors fire their championship coach from 3 years ago, who is arguably now winning Coach of the Year? Right?